too, but Disney has been pretty tight-lipped about the upcoming sequel and what dangers are coming Arendelle's way. There are lots of rumors that the movie will follow Anna and Elsa on their quest to locate their missing parents. Let's dive into the truth about the lost king and queen of Arendelle.
You'll be fine, Elsa.
So who are the parents of Anna and Elsa? Here's what we know about them from the first movie. Agnar was the king of Arendelle. He was a relatively young king. He was well-liked and seemed to be a good ruler. He was married to Iduna. They had Elsa first and Anna 3 years later. They loved their daughters very much, but they weren't very good at handling Elsa's powers. When Elsa accidentally struck Anna with her ice magic, Agnar knew what to do. He found a map that led to the trolls and asked for help. Pabby, the head troll, healed Anna and removed all the memories of Elsa's magic. Back at home, Agnar and Iduna totally separated their daughters. Elsa was completely isolated from everyone. They taught her to conceal her powers and not feel anything. They believed that this was the only way Elsa could learn to control her powers. Anna was all alone too, and she didn't know why. They shut Arendelle off from the world. Agnar is the one who gave Elsa her gloves, which he said would help her contain her powers. About 10 years later, Agnar and Iduna had to leave. They boarded a ship and allegedly left Arendelle to attend a royal wedding, but their ship was caught in a storm and they were lost at sea. Elsa was in charge of a whole kingdom at a young age. She kept Arendelle closed off until her official coronation at age 21. And that's all we really know about the king and queen of Arendelle from the first movie. But fans have been quick to point out a few things. The second movie. The trailer for Frozen 2 left us totally shook. It looks epic and kind of dark. All we could really tell from the trailer is that Anna and Elsa go on some sort of quest. Elsa tries to master her powers to control the sea. We see Anna falling from some rocks, and there's a new character who has mysterious powers of their own. Anna turns around and swings Kristoff's sword at some unseen evil. We also know that Olaf might be getting a love interest. So basically, we thought this movie couldn't get any more exciting, but we were wrong. Because soon after, Disney dropped a crucial piece of information. Queen Iduna is going to have a pivotal role in the new movie. OMG, that is so exciting. Now, this could mean a lot of things. It could mean she appears in flashbacks, but it could also mean that she's very much alive. Most people are pretty sure that the quest Anna and Elsa go on have to do with their parents. They may think their parents are alive, or maybe they just want to know what really happened. After all, they never really got any closure. If they are alive, what have they been up to for the last several years? Why haven't they come home? The Tarzan theory. After Frozen was released in 2013, a popular fan theory began circulating the internet. This theory ties the world of Frozen to another Disney movie, Tarzan. Tarzan was released back in 1999. At the beginning of the movie, a young married couple suffers a shipwreck. They wash up on the shore of some jungle. They build a treehouse and have a baby. Things are going great until an evil leopard attacks them. A gorilla mom hears the baby crying. She saves him from the vicious predator and raises him as her own. Tarzan grows up like a gorilla. He later meets Jane and her father, who teach him how to speak.
I will miss you, Jane.
It's a great movie, but it was the shipwreck part that fans honed in on. They believed that the parents of Tarzan were the lost king and queen of Arendelle. That would make Tarzan the younger brother of Anna and Elsa. Now, you might be thinking they don't look very similar. Tarzan's parents have kind of reddish hair. Queen Iduna has brown hair, and King Agnar is blonde. But there are some similarities. The men's noses look alike. Plus, it's two different animation styles, and it happened 14 years apart. The Tarzan theory was confirmed in 2017. Kind of. In a Reddit AMA, the director, Chris Buck, said that he thinks the parents washed ashore, built a treehouse, and had a baby. Later, he said that is just what he likes to believe. He worked as a director on Tarzan too. He really likes the fan theory and wants to believe it's true. He said that in his head, there are singing and dancing penguins on the other side of the island to tie in Surf's Up. Well, that just can't be. Gorillas don't live on islands. They live in the jungles of Africa. That's nowhere near penguins. So the Tarzan theory isn't really true. It's just the director's own personal headcanon. Or is it? Maybe they made it true and Anna and Elsa will discover their brother, but this theory also presents a problem for the rumors about Frozen 2. If their parents, or at least Queen Iduna, is supposedly coming back, the theory won't work. That leopard definitely killed Tarzan's parents. It also looks really cold in the Frozen 2 trailer. It just doesn't get cold where gorillas live. The Tangled theory. Another Frozen creator dropped a big clue in the very same Reddit. He was asked where Agnar and Iduna were headed when their ship sank. Chris talked about the Tarzan link. Kristen Bell made a joke about them needing to fix their marriage and a vacation. But Jennifer Lee, the other director, said they were headed to a wedding. A wedding? For a king and queen to go to a wedding, it's got to be a pretty important one. In fact, it's probably a royal wedding in another kingdom. Now let's take a look at the guests at Elsa's coronation. Who do we see? Yep, that is definitely Rapunzel and Eugene. They came to Arendelle for Elsa's coronation. So does that mean that King Agnar and Queen Iduna were headed to Corona for Rapunzel's wedding? We know that historically a lot of royals were related and married into different kingdoms. Is Rapunzel somehow related to Elsa and Anna? We're totally in love with this theory. The Little Mermaid theory. Tarzan and Frozen aren't the only Disney movies to feature a shipwreck. We love trying to figure out if all the Disney movies happen in the same universe. We know that Pixar movies do. A popular Tumblr theory links Frozen and Tangled to The Little Mermaid. The Little Mermaid came out back in the 1980s, but this theory is pretty compelling. A Tumblr user named LaPaul David used good old geography to prove her theory. So The Little Mermaid takes place near Denmark. That's the home of Hans Christian Andersen, who wrote the original story, and it just makes sense with the costumes and characters. He also wrote The Snow Queen, which is the fairy tale that Frozen is loosely based on. But the setting of Frozen looks more like another Nordic country. It's safe to assume it's Norway or someplace nearby. And then there's Tangled. Rapunzel is from a German fairy tale, and all the costumes and settings look very German. Now, if you look at a map, you can see that these countries are fairly close together. And if the king and queen of Arendelle were going to a wedding in Corona, they would need to take a ship. That might be why Rapunzel and Eugene came to Elsa's coronation. They probably feel terrible that Anna and Elsa's parents died on the way to their wedding. What if the shipwreck in The Little Mermaid belonged to the king and queen of Arendelle? That is the right body of water, and it seems to make way more sense than getting lost and ending up in the jungles of Africa. An even darker theory. Okay, this next theory about Agnar and Iduna doesn't tie into another Disney movie, but it does make a pretty dark assumption. In the trailer for Frozen 2, we see a couple of new characters. One of these is a young man who's buried in some leaves. He gets thrown up in the air by the wind. A lot of people think this character has wind powers, kind of like Elsa has ice powers. Reddit user Weekend Men posted a theory a few weeks ago. If this guy has wind powers, he might have trouble controlling them. After all, we know that Elsa had a lot of trouble controlling her own powers. What if this guy's wind powers caused the storm that destroyed their parents' ship? He might be accidentally responsible for their deaths. Whoa. We know that uncontrolled magic can cause some pretty bad things to happen, and that would be some serious drama for the new movie. Who is Queen Iduna? Now, let's talk about the other new character from the trailer. When this guy gets thrown up by the wind, there's a woman standing nearby. She's dressed in adventure clothes and she has long brown hair. And it's not Anna. The hair isn't right, but it is the same color as Queen Iduna's hair. Is that their mom? We almost missed this connection, but what if Queen Iduna has powers of her own? We need to look at Norse mythology for this one. In Frozen, we know they are a Norse country because we see Norse runes. And there are lots of Norse-looking symbols in the new trailer. Iduna's name means actively in love. That seems sweet. But what if it's more? It comes from the Norse name Idun. Idun was a goddess in Norse mythology. She was the wife of Bragi, the god of poetry. She was the keeper of immortality apples. And in many sources, she's associated with fertility and love. She was also kidnapped by Loki, who was forced to take her by a giant named Jazi. What if the shipwreck was actually just Iduna being kidnapped? What if she has powers like a goddess? That would definitely explain how Elsa got her powers. It would be super cool if Elsa and Anna's mom is just as powerful as her oldest daughter. Reunited. We really want to see Anna and Elsa reunited with at least one of their parents. But if their parents are alive, why have they been gone so long? It's definitely possible to survive a shipwreck, but unless they ended up in Africa, they should have been able to get back. There might be some dark, sinister plot that has kept them from returning to their daughters in Arendelle. We just don't know how that could play out, but it would make for a really great story in the sequel. But the reunion between the daughters and their parents might not be all happy. After all, they kind of made some huge parenting mistakes. Sure, they might have been trying their best, but let's look at the facts. They kept their two daughters completely isolated from each other. They let Elsa believe she was a dangerous freak when she was just a kid.
Elsa, what have you done? This is getting out of hand.
It was an
accident.
This totally messed with her head. Elsa really hated herself and her powers until she was free in the mountains. She had a ton of guilt. And poor Anna. She was tiny when the accident happened. She spent her whole life thinking her sister hated her. She was lonely, but it was all because of their parents. And then there's the whole issue of the prison cell. Hans traps Elsa in a magic-resistant prison. It even has things that fit over Elsa's hands so she can't use her powers. But Hans wasn't there long enough to make these. In fact, how would he know that all of her power came from her hands? That only leads to one possibility. The king and queen built a custom prison cell for Elsa just in case they couldn't control her. They were scared of her powers. They had a cruel prison built for their daughter in case she lost control. Was that really the best option? The trolls knew about magic. Magic exists in the world. Why couldn't they just teach her to control her powers? They were the king and queen. They had the means to find someone to help her. Yeah, we're thinking this reunion might be a little tense if it happens. Do you think Anna and Elsa's parents are still alive? Tell us your theories in the comments section below.